You're about to see a list of the most mind-bending sci-fi thrillers, movies with action-packed adventures and crazy plot twists, stories and weird endings that will leave you asking,
what is going on in here?
So here are the top sci-fi thrillers to watch right now. The very first one I want to talk about here is Midnight Special. Now in this movie, we follow Roy and his friend Lucas as they try to protect Roy's son, whose name is Alton. Now Alton is an 8-year-old boy who suddenly develops supernatural abilities. He's basically Starlight from The Boys with the powers of prophecy. It turns out that the FBI has put out an Amber Alert to capture him, with multiple officials looking for him as well. There is also a religious cult that's looking for him because they believe that he is their savior. It's really kind of weird. Adam Driver also plays an FBI analyst who's trying to understand the situation with Alton. The entire plot of the movie is just Roy and Lucas taking Alton to a location that Alton specifies thanks to his abilities, and there's a whole story behind that, but I don't want to give away too much. The movie is thrilling with a very good explanation of the father-son dynamic as well as the buddy relationship between Roy and Lucas, and it all ties into the sci-fi narrative in a pretty decent way. Now, although the beginning of the film starts off pretty slow, the ending was definitely a huge payoff that left me confused, but maybe you'll be able to figure it out and then get back to me. And then next up on this list, we have Synchronic. Now, this is another Anthony Mackie sci-fi thriller. In this movie, you have two paramedics named Steve and Dennis. They start to notice that people are dying in very weird ways, and it's all linked to this messed up drug called Synchronic. Unfortunately, Steve accidentally comes in contact with the drug and it gives him cancer. And Steve was like, hell no. So he starts investigating Synchronic, and it turns out Synchronic can give you cancer, but it can also give you the ability to travel back in time. And out of nowhere, Dennis's daughter just goes missing, and Steve decides to use Synchronic to find her. This launches Steve into having some crazy adventures across time while trying to solve the mystery of his friend's daughter, as well as coming to terms with his cancer diagnosis. Synchronic grinds down its time traveling elements in pretty interesting ways, and it did manage to give me a couple scares that kind of made me regret watching this movie at nighttime, but it was still a pretty dope film. Now, speaking of downright scary movies, No One Will Save You is just as foreboding as the title implies. Now, I want you to picture this for a second. You pay a visit to the house you grew up in and decide to spend some time there. Now, it's just you in the house, and in the middle of the night, you realize that you're not alone as you think. Aliens from another world who want nothing more than to do you harm have invaded your home, and now you have to fight for your life. That is exactly the situation that Britt is in. She's a young girl mourning the loss of her best friend and her mother, all alone in her childhood home, until suddenly she realizes that aliens with telekinetic abilities have invaded her house. As we proceed further into the plot, we find out that they've also invaded her town as well, but it gets worse. The aliens have parasites that they infect humans with, and they've infected the townsfolk. But Bryn, to her credit, is a badass. She single-handedly fights off and beats a lot of these aliens quite successfully, if I might add, and tries to retain her home and sanity amidst of an outright invasion. As far as sci-fi, thriller, horror movies go, No One Will Save You offers a fun and fresh insight into the already used sci-fi tropes. And then we have The Animal Kingdom. Now, this is probably one of the most outlandish and original plots that I've seen in a while here. The Animal Kingdom is a French-Belgian movie. Now, in this world, humans suddenly start undergoing a series of mutations that turn them into different animals from the animal kingdom. It's kind of weird. I'm talking about humans turning into like part snakes, part human hybrid, part birds, part predators. It's quite fascinating and weird at the same time. Now, the film focuses on a father and a son, Francois and Emile, as they try to deal with their wife/mother who gets infected by this mutation. So to solve this issue, they have to go into the woods. Now, I don't know if you know anything about the woods, but that's typically where all the animals go and they eat each other. So I wasn't too surprised when Francois and Emile ended up having a pretty graphic adventure there, having to face off a bunch of mutated humans as they tried to solve the mystery behind this human-animal mutation in the first place. This was a crazy film, guys, and as much as I love the visuals, the story, the performances, and the entire plot were extremely thought-provoking, and I think you'll be somewhat satisfied with the ending. Also, if there's something that will leave you completely satisfied, it is hitting that subscribe button, because we always have a new video ready for you every single week, giving you incredibly great movies for your convenience, or series that you also can watch on different platforms. So hit that subscribe button and that like button as well. See, don't you feel satisfied? And then next up, we have Coherence. Now, this is probably my favorite sci-fi movie ever. First of all, it's an indie film with an extremely low budget, yet it's the most mind-boggling, most incoherent yet coherent plot that I've ever seen. Let me explain. The story revolves around 8 friends attending a dinner party during the passing of a comet known as the Miller's Comet. Now, the comet leaves a tear in reality and opens their reality to an alternate timeline. Well, actually alternate timelines due to something called a quantum decoherence. This movie takes the concept of the multiverse to a whole nother level that just blew my mind, because soon the members of the alternate timelines started infiltrating the houses of their alternate selves. And pretty soon, all hell, of course, is gonna break loose, right? There's so many alternate versions of these 8 people, and they all look the same, so it's hard to tell which one is which and where they're from. And as we proceed, we find out that they're all in trouble and are likely to have their realities erased if they're not allied with a proper world. This all leads to quite the unexpected ending that I honestly did not see coming. It does say a thing or two about the human need for survival, but the cliffhanger at the end was one that just had me guessing, like, what? And next, if there's one movie whose box office underperformance shocked me to my core, it is John Carter. Now, this is a sci-fi movie for the ages. It had everything: a great story, amazing action, good CGI graphics, some pretty great jokes, and a somewhat satisfying ending that left room for some questions. Now, in case you haven't seen this blockbuster, it tells the story of John Carter, a former military man who gets sent to Mars, or Bassoon as it's called in the movie. There, he develops a pretty cool ability and gets in the good books with some of the natives. He also gets thrusted into a war between some major powers of the planet, some good and then some, of course, not so good. So with this witty sense of justice, Carter fights to free the Martians from their oppressors. The ending was really good, but it left me with a lot of questions, so be prepared for that one. And then we have Paradise. Now, this German film pushes the boundaries of what sci-fi stories can portray by giving us a titillating tale of survival in a somewhat dystopian future. Now, the movie is set in Berlin at a distant time where humans have some very advanced technology. There's a multi-million-dollar company called Eon that has developed a way that allows them to take the lifespan from one human and transfer it over to another. It's a system that exploits the poor and benefits the rich, where they can take the years from one less fortunate person for a fee and then give it to rich individuals to extend their lives. Now, Max is a worker for Eon who helps to facilitate this process. But after getting promoted at work, they go home to find their high-end home has been destroyed and it hasn't fully been paid for. Now, unbeknownst to Max and his wife, Elena, they had agreed to give 40 years from her lifespan as collateral for the condo. So Elena is forced to give up her years of payment, and within days, she becomes a senior citizen. This sets Max on the path to doing everything he possibly can to restore the lost years of his wife, literally. The story culminates in a complex web of choices, betrayals, and a glimpse of hope amidst a world where age is a commodity. I honestly couldn't believe how compelling the story was, and I honestly have to give props to those German filmmakers for their original storytelling. And next up is The Shift. Now, this tells the story of Kevin, a former hedge fund manager who divorced his wife Molly after their son went missing. One day, he suddenly has a car crash, gets rescued, and is transported to an alternate universe by a mysterious man known as the Benefactor. Plot twist, turns out the Benefactor is actually the devil, and he had transported Kevin to his universe so Kevin could give him his soul. Then the Benefactor abandons him in this world, and Kevin literally has to live in a world that the devil made in his image, survive the hellish dystopian themes and policies, and somehow return to his reality to the woman that he loves. The Shift employs some heavy Christian themes and elements, but it also has very good sci-fi connotations that are hard to ignore. The world building is spectacular, and it does have a wholesome and satisfying ending, which is something we don't see a lot in these sci-fi movies. And then we have Jules, which is one of those sci-fi movies that reinvents the very familiar sci-fi tropes. It's an indie film starring Ben Kingsley and directed by Mark Turtletaub. So a 79-year-old man, Milton, was chilling in his house one day when a spaceship crashed in his backyard. There he found an extraterrestrial with a penchant for apples, ? When other residents of the neighborhood find the alien, they befriend it and name it Jules. Jules attempts to fix her spaceship so it can, well, it's not exactly clear what Jules wants to do, honestly. Invade the planet, escape the planet, get more apples, like who the heck knows? The point is, Jules really needs to fix the ship, but the feds are looking for Jules. So Milton, her circumstantial roommate, is dealing with an end-of-life crisis and coming to terms with the fact that he's going senile. It's all kind of really funny. Jules is that alien movie we didn't ask for, but we're glad that we got it. It's the answer to the question of what happens when you mix ET with old people, and it's definitely a great watch. And then last but certainly not least here is the creator. It wouldn't quite be a list of sci-fi movies if I didn't have a movie on here that warned us about AI. Now, the creator, starring John David Washington, is one of the best sci-fi films that came out in 2023. Now, in the movie, the year is 2077, and there's an ongoing war between humans and AI. Sort of the humans are mostly winning, kind of. Turns out a nuclear bomb was released over Los Angeles in the year 2055, and everyone blames AI for it. So humans developed a special organization known as Nomad to combat AI technology. Now, JDW plays Taylor, a former soldier who lost his wife and unborn child due to the war until he gets tasked with a mission to protect a new AI technology named Alfie, one that could end the war once and for all. And let's just say in his quest to protect Alfie, Taylor finds out that he's connected to this whole ordeal in more ways than one. The movie is action-packed with a lot of twists and big reveals that I never really saw coming, but I was glad to witness, all leading up to an ending that was less than ideal but appreciated anyways. Now, this brings us to the end of our list of the top 10 sci-fi thrillers that will keep you guessing here. Be sure to tell me what you thought about this movie in the comments down below. Check out our other videos here on the channel where you can find your best series and movies to watch on your favorite platforms. And as always, thank you so much for watching Cinema Cascade.